Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And a Prospect Watch video, quite a bit of news floating around, so we'll wrap it up in one video. Starting with the Olympic bronze medalist Frazer Clarke, who was the long-time amateur captain of Team GB. He is going to be facing Rydell Booker March 25th. So he's had a bit of a mixed bag so far with his professional career. Some of the fights have been like, well, what was the point? Others, he's got some rounds, but he hasn't necessarily sparkled. But he's got an opportunity to, in a minor step up, against Rydell Booker March 25th. And I quite like this fight. And I know some people will be going, Rydell Booker, why does that name sound familiar? Well, he's been on the scene forever and a day. There was a huge gap in his career when he was in prison. Once he fought James Toney way back when, but he's, in recent years, he's got some good work against some decent fighters. So in terms of who he's fought recently, you've got Filip Hrgovic back in 2020, Kubrat Pulev 2019, Jermaine Franklin 2019. That was a very close and competitive fight. Arguably, you could have given that one to Booker. And now you've got Jermaine Franklin facing Anthony Joshua. Marcin Sui, Otto Wallin, Stefan Shaw, all taken the distance in the past couple of years. Actually, that was all 2022, those names. And he did actually stop Norman Neely, a then undefeated prospect. This was in September. So or should I say December, a case where called in at short notice and he takes him out in a round. So this is actually not a bad fight. I know some people look at the age and go, 41, what does he really offer? But this has rounds written all over it. Frazer Clarke, he is heavy-handed, but we've got some questions. He hasn't always looked fantastic in some of his fights so far as a pro. It's not like people are going out of their way to go, I have to must-see his fights. So he's got to start putting some entertainment into his style and breathe some sort of momentum into his career. Is this the sort of fight where he could do it? Yeah, I don't know, because Booker is tricky, he's crafty, he knows how to make guys miss, but also he's good on the counter. And as Norman Neely found out, if you're a little bit sloppy, you can get taken out. So I like it. So good fight for Frazer Clarke. He's at least going to get rounds. And at this stage, that's actually good for him as well. Maybe his ceiling is a little lower than guys like Joe Joyce and Anthony Joshua. No shame in that, but this fight will give us more of an indication of where he's really at. Richard Torrez, so he's been announced by Top Rank as returning on March the 25th. It says Olympic silver medalist Richard Torrez Jr. will look to continue knockout streak against Willie Jake Jr. at Fresno's Save Mart Center live on ESPN. So the opponent, it is what it is. Willie Jake Jr., he's okay, but for this sort of time in his career, he's going to wash him. So you've got Richard Torrez saying, it was a dream come true to fight at Save Mart Center, and I can't wait to do it again. I'm improving every fight, and I want to thank Top Rank for keeping me busy and giving me the opportunity to fight at home in the Central Valley. And I think that's kind of key at this point, because Torrez, what is he, 5-0 at this point? You really need him to be active and not just out every 4 or 5 months, but if he can be out every couple of months at this stage of his career, learning on the job as a pro. We saw in his last fight where he was a bit more selective and he dropped the hammer right at near the end of the first round, and it was a beautiful shot. So I like that they're keeping Torrez active, and hopefully he can fight another 3-4 times this year at least. I don't expect to see him in a sort of true sort of test of sorts, at least for where he's at, until sort of 2024. This year is just about development, activity, building him as a pro. Moses Itauma also out on March 25th, so it actually looks like this date is going to be quite popular. So you've got Frazer Clarke March 25th, you've also got Richard Torrez March 25th, Moses Itauma also March 25th, so it's going to be the day of the prospect. So he must have had his comments off on this post, I'm not sure. So he's back there. He's obviously stated some goals of wanting to become the youngest ever heavyweight champion, beating Mike Tyson's record, etc. Frank Warren's going to have to basically have him out every month or so just to make sure he's even in the conversation for that to happen. I think it's more of a marketing ploy at this point. I think for Itauma, we're not going to see him in with any real live bodies. The first guy that he fought, pretty suspicious the way that it ended. Basically caught him on the gloves and he went down and didn't want to get up. He was trained by Pavel Sauer, so he's probably had a few acting lessons from Sauer. Moving on to Solomon Dacres. So this is March the 18th. So this is a fight Solomon Dacres pictured right on the promo. A fight against Robert Ismay for the English heavyweight title. This one was signalled some time ago. The British Boxing Board of Control had ordered it. I know that there is another YouTuber who is very close with Robert Ismay, the former cruiserweight who had a big gap in his career, has returned at heavyweight unbeaten at 11-0. But for me, this is careful matchmaking from Matchroom. Solomon Dacres is the prospect, the home fight, the one that they're backing and building. To me, this looks like a careful matchmaking where they're like, we're not going to take on this guy if it was too much too soon. And as it is, we've seen Dacres in some different performances where he's looked really good. Really sort of bossed Kamil Sokolowski. Maybe Dacres doesn't quite have that pop that you would like to see him have on some of his shots, but he's a very good operator, skilled. And I would say this will be a pretty comfortable night at the office, at the very least a decision win. I know that this other YouTube that I refer to thinks that Ismay is going to win by knockout. I guess we shall see. I'm not expecting that at all. Moving on to another matchroom prospect, Jonny Fisher facing Alfonso Damiani. This will be March 11th at the M&S Bank Arena in Liverpool. So I thought it was a different Damiani at first, but no, this is a different guy. A record of, 6-2. It looks pretty thin. Jonny Fisher should go in here. He's a project. He's still a bit raw. He's polishing up at this point. He needs rounds. He needs activity. This will give him a little bit of each. He probably stops the guy at some point during the fight. Yeah, I'm not really expecting too much more. I mean, if Damiani actually comes in and is better than advertised, well, all the good for Jonny Fisher, because he does need rounds. And rounding up this prospect video, so Jeamie Tshikeva. So he's just had an 8-round decision over Harry Armstrong. This was on the Adam Azim show. I only caught the last 5 rounds of the fight. So when the scores were read out of 77-75 to Jeamie, aka TKV Tshikeva, I was a little surprised because the back end of the fight, I thought he won all of those rounds relatively comfortable. I mean, I think we can say with Tshikeva, good rounds. He's only, 4-0 at this point. Trying to make a name for himself. He's been trying to talk up a budding rivalry with Frazer Clarke. Clarke doesn't really seem too interested, although Clarke was on commentary and he did say he liked the variation of Tshikeva's punches. And I agree. He does seem to have all the shots in the book. Just doesn't seem to have it quite enough pop on his punches. I mean, at this level, against some of the guys that he's facing, he does really need to be putting the hurt on a little bit more and probably stopping some of these guys like this Harry Armstrong. But he gets the win. That's the main thing. Plenty to work on, and I think he could be in better condition. That's sort of one of the criticisms, I think, as well. I mean, that goes for a lot of prospects at the moment. They seem to be quite fleshy. I mean, I was surprised Moses Itauma was almost 250 pounds in his first fight. I mean, and also Frazer Clarke has looked a little bit heavier than he really should at the stage of his prospect career. But what do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.